Hare Krishna. Dandas pranams to everybody. Welcoming each and every one of you for our Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Today we have His Grace Ashoka Gaura Prabhu who's with us. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for joining and then for giving us this association. So I request him to kindly take over and then deliver the nectar. So Prabhu, thank you so much, and over to you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Om Ajnanatimiraandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानो सुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यमीश्वरं हरि ओम् तत्सत्। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. So we're going to read today from Canto 4, Chapter 30, Text 24. Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya Haraye Harimedhase Vasudevaya Krishnaya Prabhave Sarvasatvatam. नमो विशुद्ध सत्वाय हरये हरिमेधसे वासुदेवाय कृष्णाय प्रभवे सर्वसात्वताम्। नमो विशुद्ध सत्वाय हरये हरिमेधसे वासुदेवाय कृष्णाय प्रभवे सर्वसात्वताम्। Word to word. Namaha, obeisances. Vishuddha Sattvaya, unto you whose existence is free from all material influences. Haraye, who takes away all miserable conditions of devotees. Harimedhase, whose brain works only for the deliverance of the conditioned souls. Vasudevaya, the all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishnaya, unto Krishna. Prabhave, who increases the influence. Sarvasatvatam, of all kinds of devotees. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Dear Lord, we offer our respectful obeisances unto you because your existence is completely independent of all material influences. Your Lordship always takes away the devotee's miserable conditions, for your brain plans how to do so. You live everywhere as Paramatma. Therefore, you are known as Vasudeva. You also accept Vasudeva as your father. and you are celebrated by the name Krishna. You're so kind that you always increase the influence of all kinds of devotees. In the previous verse, purport, in the previous verse, it is said that it has been said, Grihita Maya Guna Vigrahaya, that the Lord accepts three kinds of bodies, Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, for the purposes of creating, maintaining, and annihilating the cosmic manifestation. The three predominating deities of the material universe, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are called Guna Avataras. There are many kinds of incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the first incarnations within this material world are Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, Shiva. Out of these three, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva accept material bodies. But Lord Vishnu does not accept a material body. Lord Vishnu is therefore known as Vishuddha Sattva. His existence is completely free from the contamination of the material modes of nature. One should therefore not think that Lord Vishnu is in the same category with Lord Brahma and Shiva. The Shastras forbid us to think in this way. Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivatai Samatve Naiva Viksheta Sapashandi Bhave Dhruvam. One who considers Lord Vishnu to be in the same category with Devas like Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva, or who thinks Lord Brahma and Shiva to be equal to Lord Vishnu is to be considered as Pashandi, a faithless non-believer. Therefore, in this verse, Lord Vishnu is distinguished in the words Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya. Although a living entity like us, Lord Brahma is exalted due to his pious activities. Therefore, he is given the highest post of Brahma. Lord Shiva is not actually like a living entity, but he is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His position is somewhere between Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Brahma, the living entity. Lord Shiva is therefore explained in the Brahma Samhita 5.45 in this way. Shiram yatha dadi vikara vishesha yogat sanjayate nahi tata pratagasti heto yasham bhutam api tatha samapaiti karyad govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Lord Shiva is considered to be like yogurt, dadhi. Yogurt is nothing but transformed milk. Nonetheless, yogurt cannot be accepted as milk. Similarly, Lord Shiva holds almost all the powers of Lord Vishnu, and he is also above the qualities of the living entities. But he is not exactly like Vishnu. Just as yogurt, although transformed milk, is not exactly like milk. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is also described herein as Vasudevaya Krishnaya. Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all Vishnu expansions are his plenary portions or portions of his plenary portions known as Swamsha and Kalamsha. The Swamsha or the direct expansion is also called Amsha. All Vishnu Tattvas are Swamsha, direct parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Krishna is known as Vasudeva because he appeared in the material world as the son of Vasudeva. Similarly, he is known as Devaki Nandana, Yashoda Nandana, Nanda Nandana, and so on. Again and again, the Lord is very much interested in increasing the influence of his devotees. Therefore, he is described herein as Prabhave Sarva Sattvatam. The Sattvata community is a community of Vaishnavas, pure devotees of the Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has unlimited powers, and he wants to see that his devotees are also entrusted with unlimited powers. Therefore, a devotee of the Lord is always distinguished from other living entities. The word Hari means one who takes away all miserable conditions. And Harimedhase means that Lord is always planning ways to deliver the conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. The Lord is so kind that he personally incarnates to deliver the conditioned souls. And whenever he comes, he makes his plans. परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. 4.8 Bhagavad Gita. Since the Lord delivers all conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya, he is known as Hari Medhas. In the list of incarnations, Krishna is described as the supreme and original personality of Godhead. Ete chamshakala pumsaha Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Vridayanti Yuge Yuge. Bhagavatam 1.3.28. Krishna, the original personality of Godhead, appears in this material world when the demigods, who are the devotees of the Lord, are disturbed by demons. Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya Hare Hari Medhase Vasudevaya Krishnaya Prabhave Sarvasatvatam. I seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas assembled here so that I can speak appropriately and it can benefit myself, and also in the process, if it is benefiting you, it's an advantage. So, very interestingly, we see here that the Prachetas are using the word Krishna, Vasudevaya Krishnaya. Recently, even His Grace Radhesham Prabhu was mentioning how Krishna is not some new word which began since 5,000 years back. So the Prachetas were living in the Swayambhu Manvantara, the first Manvantara, almost about 7 Manvantaras back, close to 500, Chatur Yuga cycles back. So, and, Krishna is, the original personality of Godhead. So it's not a surprise that, throughout Bhagavatam, we see in different millenniums, in different yugas, in different manvantaras, we see all the great souls using the word Krishna. Brahma uses it, Ishwaraha, Paramakrishna, Sachidananda Vigraha. Also, we see Prahlad Maharaj using. Prahlad Maharaj was there during the 6th Manvantara, during Chakshusha Manvantara, and where he uses Matirna Krishne Paratasvatova. So, like that, it is very common. And in fact, even in Prithu Maharaj's pastimes also, Prithu Maharaj, there also it is used. It is something like Arya Radhayeshu Krishnam. To satisfy, the Supreme Lord Krishna, he performed, all his tapasya, like that it is mentioned. So many places we see that, Lord Krishna is mentioned by these great souls. So this is the chapter where the Prachetas have successfully completed their austerities, penances by the audience of the Supreme Lord, who appears there on Garuda, and they're completely satisfied. And the Lord is also very pleased because of their mutual cooperation in devotional service. So very interesting point. Very important shloka where, we learn from the Prachetas how all the God brothers or all the devotees within a community, very lovingly cooperate with each other to practice devotional service, because Krishna is in the center. And keeping Krishna in the center, then there should be no question of, a rift between devotees. Although there may be difference of opinions and difference of the way one can serve Krishna, but there is no question of animosity, there's no question of hatred, envy, jealousy, fights. So there's no, in the Chaitanya Bhagavata it is mentioned that somebody is rendering Vaishnav Seva to a few devotees and criticizing a few other devotees. He is unfit, he is unqualified for anything. He's not qualified for anything. His so-called Vaishnava Seva is just a sham. So it has no value. It bears no fruit. So there's no point in rendering Vaishnav Seva to some and criticizing and backstabbing somebody else. So of course, there is a element of discrimination where if somebody wants to keep a distance from somebody who's a Prakrita or somebody who's Kanishta, understand. Although, Vaishnava doesn't think that others are Kanishta, but in case for the sake of discrimination, you see that, devotees are talking Prajalpa or specific devotees, not so much interested in Krishna Katha, then you can always, respect from a distance for he being Vaishnava and not take, intimate association. So that is a max one can, go to the extent, but not to the extent of criticizing anybody. So criticizing is a big no. So that way, the Prachetas have been given as a, great example of how they came together, cooperated with each other, and, rendered a devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Now, one may be thinking, how did they cooperate? Anyway, they were meditating for 10,000 years under the water. So there was no question of talking to each other because they were, individually meditating on the Supreme Lord. So that also is a great thing because, they didn't influence each other and they were all together in a room or in a place under the water where, they practiced devotional service. So that is also very much laudable that they did not influence each other to give up or go away or encourage, discourage, or compare all of those things. So that is why the Lord was very much pleased. And that is why the Lord, the first thing that he says when he sees them is that, you have very nicely cooperated among each other. So I'm very much pleased with your cooperation in rendering devotional service. So here the Lord is mentioned as Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya. So the Lord is beyond the Sattva Guna. He is in pure goodness. He is not in the three modes of material nature. The jivas in the material world, they are either under the influence of Sattva, Raja or Tamoguna, or a combination of all three, or a predominance of any one of the modes. Like in the upper planetary systems, the predominance is more of Sattva Guna. But still, they are all under the three modes. But the Lord is not like that. He is Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya. So in the Bhagavatam, in the first canto, when the Lord enters Dwarka, it is said, Etadishanam ishasya prakriti sthopi tadgunai na yujjate sadatmasthair yatha buddhistadashrayah. So the meaning is, Etadishanam ishasya prakriti sthopi. The Lord is, although he is the Supreme Lord, Ishvara, although he is being situated in Prakriti Stho. Prakriti Stho means Prakriti Sthita. Although he comes to the material world, he is situated among, ordinary people or among his devotees or among, in the vision of ordinary people, he appears to be rendering, so-called natural daily duties, activities. It appears as if, he is not different from any other human being or a king. But the Lord is not influenced by any of these three modes of material nature because he is beyond the three modes. He does not need to do it, but he comes to, set an example so that, all the mankind can follow. Name parthasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana. I have no duty to perform in these three worlds. But nana vatama vaptavyam varta evacha karmani. But to set an example, the Lord actually performs his duties. All these duties, nimitta karma, naimittika karma, all of these duties, the Lord does not need to perform. He is simply satisfied in his, he is Atmaram. But he comes, he renders, duties according to the varnas and ashramas. Just to set an example so that people can follow. Not only the Supreme Lord, but it is also said, एतद् ईशानमीशस्य प्रकृतिस्थोपि तद्गुणे न युज्यते सदात्मस्ते यथा बुद्धिस्तदाश्रय. So even those great souls or devotees who take shelter of the Supreme Lord, who glorify the Supreme Lord, they also are beyond these three modes. They are also not influenced by the three modes. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that त्रिभिर गुणमयैर भावैरिभिः सर्वमिदं जगत् मोहितं नाभिजानाति मामेभ्यः परमव्ययम्. So त्रिभिर गुणमयैर भावैरिभिः, the whole world, sarvamidam jagat, the entire world is under the grips of the three modes of material nature. Mohitam navijanati, because they are bewildered, they can never know me, who I am above the three modes. Mamebhya paramabhyayam. So I am beyond the three modes. So only those devotees who perform pure devotional service, only they can cross over the three modes of material nature. Mamchayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sa gunan samatityetan. So to cross over the three modes, one should perform avyabhichari bhakti. So vyabhichari bhakti is nothing but it's a mixed bhakti. It's a karma mishra or jnana mishra bhakti within the modes of nature, like sattva guna, rajoguna, tamoguna bhaktis. All these three types of bhaktis also can be rendered within the material nature, which is mentioned in the episode of Lord Kapila's teachings, where we see there is sattva guna bhakti, rajoguna bhakti, tamoguna bhakti also. And it is okay. So also it is mentioned again and again, the Lord is very much interested in increasing the influence of his devotees. He is called here as Prabhave Sarva Sattvatam. So he influences Prabhave Sarva Sattvatam. It means that he who influences all kinds of devotees. Influencing all kinds of devotees means that he increases the glories of his devotees so that they have the same potency and the same power as the Supreme Lord, so that they can deliver this material world. That is why he is known as Prabhave Sarva Sattvatam. And there is also the Sattvata dynasty. When we read Bhagavatam, it is mentioned the Andhakas, the Bhojas, the Vrishnis, and there is Sattvatas. So the Lord is also, part of the Sattvata dynasty, coming from the Sattvata community. All of these are coming from the Yadu Vamsha. So that is why he is elsewhere also he is mentioned how he is in the Bhagavatam it is mentioned Tasmad ekena manasa Bhagavan Sattvatam Patihi. So he is the Sattvatam Pati. Even Bhishma, when he is rendering prayers, he says, Itimati Rupakalpita Vitrishna Bhagavati Sattvata Pungave Vibhumni. So like that, the Lord is known as Sattvata Pati or Sattvata Pungave Vibhumni. So that way, he is the leader of the Sattvata community. That is how Bhishma Dev actually glorifies. The most interesting point in this verse is he is being glorified as Haraye Hari Medhase. So the translation is that Haraye is one who takes away all the miserable conditions of the devotees. And Hari Medhase is the one whose brain is working only for the deliverance of the conditioned souls. Very interesting. Although I'm sure we all know that when the Lord shows his mercy on a genuine devotee, his real mercy is, to take away our attachments so that we take complete shelter of the Supreme Lord and we go back to him. And this is what the Lord also wants. That is why it is said, Yasyaham anugrihnami harishye tad dhanam shanai tato dhanam tyajantasya svajano dukkha dukkhitam. So yasyaham anugrihnami harishye tad dhanam shanai. So I take away all his material opulences or material attachments of a devotee, and his own people will reject him so that he can depend more on me. He can take my shelter. The Lord will not do this initially because he knows, the jivas who have taken to Krishna consciousness, they have Komal Shraddha. So when there is Komal Shraddha and the Lord shows excessive mercy, then, we completely altogether give up Krishna consciousness and go away. So he very well knows about it. That is why Yasyaham Anugrihnami, his Anugraha comes only when a devotee has practiced, certain amount of Krishna consciousness. He's spent considerable amount of time in Krishna consciousness, and he's, advanced to a certain extent. That is when the Lord sees that, we have specific attachments where, we are unable to completely engage in Krishna consciousness, and that is when, the Lord takes away those attachments. And although it may be painful, the pain is only because of the attachment, and it is not because of any relevance to the jiva. It is only because of the attachment the pain is experienced, but soon enough the devotee overcomes that attachment and he takes shelter of the Supreme Lord. In the Chauragragana Ashtakam also it is mentioned, Dhanam cha manam cha yathendriyanam pranam cha hritva mama sarvameva. So the Lord takes away dhanam. He takes away mana also, we are too much of respect. When too much of respect is being given, then we become attached to it. Automatically in our community, in ISKCON, if somebody has spent 15, 20, 30 years, he automatically gets the title of senior devotee, which is actually foolishness, because seniority does not come by putting in number of years. But unfortunately, everybody gets that title of seniority just because they have spent a number of years. So what about the practice? We don't know. Only Krishna and Guru knows about the practice. So like that, when there is too much of mana, then some element of, apamana is also needed. The Lord arranges for it. So, and if a devotee has nicely practiced, he understands that this is a duality, then he can easily overcome it. He is not disturbed by it. So he can easily overcome, apaman, insult. Sammana ghor garalam nich apamanam sudha. Prabodhananda Saraswati writes, who is the uncle of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. He writes that Sammana ghor garalam. Respect is nothing but it is poison. Ghor garalam is, is like halahal poison, something like that. Neech apamanam sudha. But criticism, chastisement, correction is actually nectar. So that is why one needs to be under the devotees who very lovingly correct. That is why it is said, Nindaka niyare rakhiye angana puti chabai, bin sabun pani bin nirmal kare subai. So without the use of soap, one can easily be cleansed. The heart is cleansed when you keep, someone who is expert at criticizing very close to you. Not that kind of criticizer who's a Vaishnava Aparadhi, but somebody who genuinely criticizes. Constructive criticism by a senior is very, very healthy. So one is very close to it. But unfortunately, the false egos are so big and thick that even correction is considered as, an offense. And we try to ignore, reject, altogether reject the devotee himself, or we are not ready to, change ourselves, take the constructive criticism as a healthy opportunity for us to, uh, review ourselves and, change ourselves. So that is why we do not advance in Krishna consciousness. So it is important. So that is why dhanam cha manam cha yathendriyanam. The Lord takes away mana also. Devotee does not mean that sadhaka especially does not mean that he'll get all the glorification in the world. So we become attached to glorification, then it's a problem. And generally we like to come in the association of devotees. We are very eager, hanker to come in the association of devotees just because we glorify each other. That doesn't happen in our offices. That doesn't happen while we are working. The boss does not glorify us all the time. Maybe in a year or once in 2 years he may glorify one line, but that doesn't happen in the case of devotees. Every week we are very respectful to each other, we glorify each other. That's very pleasing to the false ego. That is why we hanker. Generally, a sadhaka, especially when we are not advanced, we generally hanker for association of devotees, because this is the community where we get a lot of respect, a lot of glorification. But real association is, real sadhu sangha, real association is getting corrected. So being watched upon, giving our own, report of ourselves, our own sadhana, so that, I can be watched. So that is important. So without being watched, there is no question of, getting corrected. So the Lord here, he dhanam cha manam cha yathendriyana pranamscha hirtva mama sarvameva. So like that, the Lord is known as Chauragraganya, the foremost of thieves. He takes away all this for the purification of the living entity. And here it is also said, I think a couple of verses before, the same thing is repeated, where the Prachetas say in verse 22, Namo Nama Klesha Vinashanaya. So the Lord is considered as the one who destroys the material distress. And the same thing is repeated here, that he is Haraye Harimedase. So he destroys the miserable conditions of the living entities. So, but when we look at the material world, the material creation, it is designed in such a way that it gives us suffering. So that is why it is called as Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. Right from beginning with the pralaya, the way the material world is designed, there are 4 types of pralayas. There is Naimittika pralaya, there is a Prakrita pralaya, then there is a Nitya pralaya, and then there is the Atyantika pralaya. So Naimittika pralaya is considered as occasional. Occasional means, once in a day of Brahma, like at the end of every kalpa, there is the destruction. So that is Naimittika. And then there is the Prakritika pralaya, where the entire material universe is completely destroyed. All the material elements also disappear into Prakriti or Pradhana. So like, the earth enters into water, water enters into fire, fire into air, air enters into ether. So that way everything, dissolves in the previous element, and everything, completely vanishes. So that is called as Prakritika Pralaya. And then there is the Nitya Pralaya. Nitya Pralaya is nothing but every day, things are deteriorating. There are millions and millions of jivas which are dying every day. And our bodies are deteriorating. The cells are falling. So like that, every day, the material bodies, they deteriorate. So this is called as Nitya Pralaya. And finally, there is the Atyantika Pralaya. Atyantika Pralaya is nothing but the dissolution of the material mind, intelligence, false ego. This is the topmost destruction. So when that is destroyed, the jiva goes to the spiritual world. He attains his swarupa. He attains his original constitutional position and he goes back to the spiritual world. So that is the ultimate pralaya. But anyway, coming to the original pralaya of this Naimitika pralaya and the Prakritika pralaya, again and again, bhutva bhutva praliyate. So Lord Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita that this material creation, again and again, there is destruction here. Again and again, the bodies, we die, we take, unlimited number of material bodies. And then there is, as if that is not enough, there is material world destruction at the end of every Chaturyuga, every Manvantara, every Kalpa, and at the end of Brahma. So there's only destruction, there's only suffering, basically. So the Jiva, although the Jiva is Sachidananda Vigraha, his nature is Sachidananda, but his Sat nature, that is eternality, is challenged by death, because the death influences the jiva into thinking that he is no longer eternal, you're going to die. Then his chit, that is knowledge, his all knowledgeable nature is challenged by the material nature's avidya potency, because we come here because of avidya, smita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesh. So that completely covers him. Then he is also Satchit, then Ananda. His Ananda potency is challenged by suffering. Suffering in the form of diseases, then death. And that way, his natural quality of being a Satchidananda is challenged in the material world. So this actually puts the jiva completely into frustration. Because he does not like the jiva by nature. The intrinsic property of the jiva is that he does not like change of body, or change of house, or change of so many changes. The living entity's quality is not like that. The living entity's quality is eternally the same. Achedyoyam adhahyoyam akledyo shosh evacha nitya sarva gatasthano achaloyam sanatana. He's achala. He does not constantly change. That doesn't happen. So, but we are forced in the material world. We are forced to go through so many things. We're forced to keep changing all the time. So it is against the nature. So the whole material world is designed in such a way that it should only bring frustration. That is why it is called as Dukkhalayam Ashashvatam. Very nicely designed by the Supreme Lord, that it should only bring frustration. The Pralaya also, thousands and thousands of years, the sun is burning, and then there is Ananta Shesha, breathing out fire and burning all the planetary systems, and then there is rains for thousands of years, and there's inundation of water, and all the jivas, probably we would have gone into the body of Mahavishnu 1,000,000 times, and we may have come out of the body of Mahavishnu 1,000,000 times when the creation happened again by a new Brahma. So as if, we are like in a hopeless situation, hopelessly being tormented, again and again. We are considered as Nitya Baddhas, We are eternally bound here in this material world. So the jiva has, never been able to, go to the spiritual world. We are eternally bound here. And so that way, the suffering goes on and on. So, but here, the Lord is being glorified as Haraye Hari Medhase, the one who takes away all the miseries. So when we take to the shelter of devotional service, when we take to the shelter of Krishna consciousness, that is when, the Lord will take away our miseries. And also, for that matter, the Lord is not giving us miseries. It is just an illusion. There is no such thing called as suffering. There are only two situations. One is bliss, that is, one is kutastha. Kutastha is nothing but the original Krishna consciousness. That is the position of the jiva. Apart from that, there is illusion, which is Maya. That's it. But there is no such thing called as suffering. Suffering is actually an illusion. It comes under illusion. So it is not real. So Srila Prabhupada mentions in this purport of Queen Kunti Maharani's purport that one specific verse, I think 25, where he says that the sufferings which we experience in this material world, they are nothing but they are all, it is like a dream, all the calamities that we experience, it is like a dream. We are dreaming it. It is not real. It is illusion. Once we wake up, then the dream becomes completely insignificant. That waking up is nothing but waking up in Krishna consciousness. So we continue to endeavor to practice Krishna consciousness so that we can wake up. And then, all the so-called suffering, so-called calamities become completely insignificant. We will not even care for it. We will not even bother for it. So it becomes completely insignificant for a jiva. So that is why there is no existence of any kind of suffering in this material world. It is just an illusion. It is the influence of the false ego on the mind and the intelligence. The false ego is forcing the mind and the intelligence to think that we are the body. And anything that happens to the body, the soul also is affected. So that is why, the body is influenced when we experience dualities through the sense perception and under the influence of mind, because the mind forces us to think that we are the body. So that is what causes us to think that we are actually suffering. But in reality, there is no suffering for the jiva. It is just an illusion. The Lord wants to actually deliver us from this illusion. It is not that, He's created the suffering for the jivas so that, we are punished. No, He only created an illusion for us to think that we are suffering. And now He is endeavoring Hari Medhase. He is using His intelligence to deliver the conditioned soul from this so-called, illusion that we think that, we are suffering. So this is how, the Lord is always endeavoring. Although the Shastra tells us that this world is a place of suffering, because we need to accept that, we are suffering. That's why, we hear this is Bhavatavi. Bhavatavi is nothing but this is a forest of material existence, or samsara davanala leedhaloka. So it is a davanala, it is a forest fire. Material world is a forest, and the tapatraya that we are experiencing is nothing but the forest fire, the threefold miseries of this material world. And of course, cheto darpana marjanam bhava maha davagni nirvapanam. So like that, it's davanala, it's a forest fire. Although there is no suffering, it is an illusion, but still the Shastras mention that, there is suffering here. There is fire here. The fire is being experienced because of sense perception, because of the mind. So still, it does have an influence on the soul. So we are experiencing it. So the scriptures are giving us an opportunity. All right, if you do not want to experience it, then you take to the shelter of the Supreme Lord. You take to the shelter of devotional service, and then you can easily get rid of it. And that is the reason why it is being mentioned that there is suffering here. So that is why the Bhagavatam says that तापत्रयेणाभिहतस्य घोरे सन्तप्यमानस्य भवाद्वनीशः पश्यामि नान्यत् शरणं तवाङ्घ्रिं द्वन्द्वाटपत्राद् अमृताभिवर्षात्. So tapatrayenabhihatasya ghore. So the jiva is being butchered by these tapatraya, left, right, center. Santapyamanasya bhavadvanishaha. He is being burnt, like a bonda, he is tapyamanasya. He is being heated up. Santapyamanasya bhavadvanishaha. But pashyami nanyat sharanam tavangrim. And this comes in the 11th canto, whatever I'm quoting. So santapya manasya bhavadvanishaha. Then pashyami nanyat sharanam tavangrim. So I do not see any other shelter apart from your lotus feet, which is like dvandvata patrad amritabivarshat. It is like an umbrella. So this umbrella is actually showering the nectar of pure devotional service. And it completely removes the fatigue and the burning that a living entity is going through. So elsewhere also it is mentioned, samsara sindhum atidustara mutti tirshor nanyat plava bhagavato purushottamasya leela katha rasa nishevana antarena pumso bhave vivida dukkha davarditasya. So samsara sindhum atidustara mutti tirshor. It is very difficult to cross over this material ocean. Nanyat plavo bhagavata purushottamasya. But I do not see any other boat in this material world save and except the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Nanyat plavo bhagavata purushottamasya. And in that boat, what is happening? When we take to the shelter of that boat, which is the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, there, Leela Katha Rasa Nishevana Antarena. We are hearing, the glories of the Supreme Lord. We are eager in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So when we take that shelter, then Pumso Bhave Vividha Dukkha Davarditasya. All his miserable conditions in so many lifetimes, from the threefold miseries of Adi Bhautik, Adi Adhyatmik, and Adi Daivik, they are all completely destroyed. Yasyam Vaishruya Manayam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhaktir Utpadhyate Pumsam Shoka Moha Bhayapaha. So everything is completely destroyed when we take to the shelter of the Supreme Lord. So the devotional service or the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is considered as a boat, as a plava. Samashritaye pada pallava plavam. Mahat padam punya yasho murare. Bhavam budir vatsa padam param padam. Padam yad vipadam natesham. So when we take to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which is like a boat, then this whole samsara sindhu, it becomes like a vatsapada. It becomes like a hoof print of a calf, and one can easily, jump over it and cross over. So like that, the Lord's lotus feet is considered as a boat. Even Kulashekar Alvar also, so many references are there in the Mukunda Mala Stotra, where he's saying that we take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which is like a boat, which helps us overcome the distressful, the suffering condition of the jivas from this material world. So the Lord is actually very eager to take us back. In the first canto, second chapter, verse number 13, you all can remember this. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, very famous purport. Prabhupada says the Lord is more eager to take us back than we are eager to go to him. We are eager to suffer here, but we are not eager to go to him where there is no suffering. So that clearly shows that, we are in illusion. The Lord is more eager to take us back. But we are eager to enjoy our dream, the illusion of, suffering. We are not ready to, cross over. We are like a child, the child is locked into a room because he is very naughty. So the mother gives, the toys. Okay, you play with these toys. And when he's playing and playing, maybe for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, he's fed up. And then he throws away the toys. Then he bangs on the door, open the door, open the door. He wants to come out. And the same way, the Lord has locked us up in this material world because we're naughty. And he's given us a lot of toys to play with, 84 lakh species and upper planetary system, lower planetary system, Vilaswarga, Bhaumaswarga, so many things. Millions of lifetimes we've been playing here. Once we are fed up, nirveda, when we develop that nirvidyate, detachment, then we will cry, we'll bang on the door of, the Supreme Lord, please open the door for me. And then that door which opens is nothing but pure devotional service. That is when, when we actually render devotional service, then this suffering goes away. That is why the Lord is known as Haraye Hari Medase. So, even Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and the first thing that happens when rendering devotional service is Kleshagni. Kleshagni, Shubhada, Moksha, Lagutakrit, and then there is Sudurlabha, then Sandharananda Visheshatma, and Shri Krishna Akarshan. Yeah. The first thing is Kleshagni. The Klesha Gni, that means it's not Klesha Agni, it is Klesha Gni. That is the destruction of Kleshas. Then there is Shubhada, then there is all auspiciousness. So sometimes we may have this question, if devotional service is practiced, then it is destroying all distresses. But I see my distress is increasing. So how is that possible? So when pure devotional service is rendered, then definitely the distress is completely removed. When we are doing a mixed devotional service, when we are having desires of material enjoyment or moksha, then we cannot overcome this distress. It will not happen. When the devotional service is practiced in the 3 modes of material nature, the distress will not be completely removed. That is why it is said, Pishachi Hridi Vartate. Bhukti Mukti Spriha Yavat Pishachi Hridi Vartate. Tavat Bhakti Sukhas Yatra Katam Abhyudhayo Bhavet. So pure devotional service cannot be practiced so long there is Bhukti and Mukti. So Kleshagni, that is the destruction of complete suffering, happens only when pure devotional service is rendered. And although the suffering may be there, the devotee is completely, detached from it, and it does not affect him. Just like, Surdas, he had no eyes. And when, Radharani wanted to bless him that, I'll give you eyes. He said, no. What is the use of, seeing this useless, dirty world of material existence when I've already had your darshan? So I don't need my eyes. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see example of Vasudev Vipra, that Kushta Vasudev Vipra, where he had leprosy, and when Mahaprabhu embraced him, his body transformed into a golden color, just like Mahaprabhu's. But he said, no, I will be affected by pride, and then all the people will talk that, oh, look at him, he is the recipient of the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So my pride will increase, my glorification will increase. I don't want that. Please give me back my leopard body. I want my leprosy body back. Please, do not, take away from me. Even Haridas Thakur also says, please do not put me in illusion. That is how Haridas Thakur speaks. Or Jaydev Goswami, his hands were cut off and he was put into a well. And Jaydev Goswami said, please do not. He did not pray to the Lord that, take me out of this problem. Okay. Looks like the sound and noise is an indication that I should stop. So maybe, I'll stop here. Hare Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anybody here has any doubts, questions, can please ask. Accordingly, if I am.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Balaji Govind Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. Very nice narration about prachetas and also devotional service. Prabhuji, this Haraye is the one who takes away the miseries, right, Prabhu? Haraye.
Yeah.
Hara
Hare
Medase.
means take away. Yeah.
Hara Medase.
One who has intelligence, Medha, who has intelligence to take away. So Hari Medase. So he's always planning to take away the miseries of the devotees, or planning to deliver, as here it is mentioned, Srila Prabhupada is saying, Hari Medase means who's using his intelligence to deliver the jiva from Maya. That is what.
Oh, the Lord is using the intelligence to deliver us like that, Prabhu.
Yeah, exactly, correct.
Okay.
Because we are independent souls, we are jivas, we have our own independence, free will. So he does not want to force us. So that is why he is using his intelligence in various ways, sending Shastra, sending pure devotees, coming himself, taking avatars, so many other ways to deliver us. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prasanatma Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for the wonderful class. So nicely you glorified the Lord Krishna. And of course, how his name is used across yugas, the word Krishna, which is not something that came up just after the incarnation of the Lord 5,000 years back, but then how the references of Krishna is there much, much before. So brought out that point and then explained the three gunas so well, and how Vishnu or the Vishnu Tattvas, Krishna up to Vishnu Tattva, how they are different, and how the Jiva Tattvas are different in terms of accepting a material body. So that those so many nice points like that, Prabhu. So thank you for that. And then how the devotees have a position themselves, but not in the material world. So the vices, and then how that can go with care and association. So there is, and also about the pralayas. You touched upon the pralaya, which takes away the false ego. I mean, what is that pralaya, Prabhu? The last one, I couldn't get that.
That is Atyantika Pralaya. Atyantika Pralaya, which removes the mind, intelligence, false ego. Most difficult. Yeah. That will be destroyed.
So very nice class, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you for your association. So devotees, if there are any other questions or comments, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You said Kutastha means Krishna consciousness, Prabhu.
Correct. Yes, Mataji. That is the fourth. That is the fourth stage. That is the original stage. Like we have right now in the material world, we experience three stages. That is Jagrata, then there is Swapna, and then there is Shushupti. There is a waking state, there is a dreaming state, and there is a deep sleep state. But the original, our constitutional position, we have Kutastha, which is the original Krishna conscious state.
Okay,
so we need to go to that. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Ashoka Prabhu. Thank you for wonderful class and your divine association. Really nice, Prabhu. Very nice. So really, I touched the point that you explained the seniority and how we get puffed up. Somebody glorifies. Really addressed to me. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thanks for the nice class, Prabhu. Prabhu, actually, from this is a question from yesterday's class. Radhesham Prabhu was explaining that ignorance is deep within. After all the sins are gone, then only then ignorance goes. So, is it like that, Prabhu? Is that order? Is it like that ignorance is never gone unless the sins are eradicated?
Yeah, because it is very deep rooted. Initially, when the creation happened, because of avidya we come, and because of the influence of ignorance, then we develop this asmita. Asmita means asmi, I, always. That is called as asmita. Then there is raga, dvesha. That is, we develop attachment and hatred. And then there is also abhinivesha, completely being absorbed in the bodily concept of life. So when we get rid of raga and dvesha, when we get rid of attachment, and when we get rid of hatred, and when we get rid of all the anarthas, then only ultimately, avidya is removed. Avidya is nothing but the original cause for us to be in this material world. So that will be removed. Avidya is nothing but illusion. It is Maya. The covering of Maya is removed. See, anarthas are destroyed in the anartha nivritti stage. And all these sinful reactions and pious reactions are also completely destroyed by the end of anartha nivritti. So in the stage of nishtha, that is where from nishtha, ruchi, asakti till bhava, the other finer elements of the other anarthas which are related to aparadha, the offenses, and then bhaktonmukha anarthas, bhaktiyotha anarthas, and aparadotha anarthas. All those are actually worked upon, and those will be removed. And finally, the parda of Maya is removed. That's my understanding, whatever I heard.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So, and also another takeaway that I wanted to mention is about Hari Medase. So nice, and that's a wonderful word, and then give a wonderful perspective to it. How Prabhupada uses that as a verb, as how the Lord is thinking of removing our sins and then getting us back there. So thank you so much.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for a very nice class, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can you repeat the Bhagavatam verse that you said Krishna will take away read the text. All the wealth and opulence of when he walks. When he is yes, Prabhuji. You said there is a Bhagavatam verse where Krishna mentioned that. I think you said it's part of Kunti Maharani prayer. 55 or
20. Okay, in 1.8.25, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that that the sufferings that we are going through, it is a so-called suffering, the so-called calamities of this world. It is like a dream. It is not real. We are experiencing it only because of our bodily concept of life. I am the body, my family, my house, my job, my wife, my children, my car. So because the bodily concept, we are actually experiencing it. But in reality, there is no relationship with all this matter with the spirit. Because asangohya ayam purushaha. The spirit has no relationship with the so-called matter of earth, water, fire, air, ether. But we are experiencing that illusion of being in the dream that I am suffering. So in spite of such sufferings, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that one should continue to focus on Krishna consciousness so that it can wake us up from the dream. Something like that.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sorry.
Yes, Prabhu.
When you speak so much volume about all these qualities of the Lord and the relationship between Lord and the devotees, then Prabhupada says, "Give me one life." That looks very, very apt. That one life should be given because
correct.
So much is there. If you think in the depth. So then one life is Prabhupada, like he said. But for us, it feels like, oh, one full life I have to give. Prabhupada is asking, but it looks like it is
correct.
Not less. It is not more.
Correct. It is insignificant. One life is nothing. So that is why pure devotees say, life after life I want to give you. But sadhakas, we struggle to give even one life. We want best of both the worlds. Best of material world, material happiness, and best of Krishna consciousness. But they go ill together. Material sense enjoyment and pure Krishna consciousness go ill together. We may have to sacrifice it somewhere. If we are too much addicted to being comfortable, like His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj was mentioning about the weeds that grow with the Bhakti Lata Beach. He used one weed. He called it as staying at home comfortably bija, something like that he told. So that is also a weed. That is an anartha. Like that, if we are addicted to staying comfortable, or we are addicted to, I can practice Krishna consciousness only if I am in such and such conditions, then we will not be ready to accept if some suffering comes. because we are only attached to being comfortable, then suffering becomes a challenge. Then facing death will become a challenge. Then we have to come back. So some element of suffering is also needed for us to develop nirvidyate, to develop detachment. So actually, suffering comes as a blessing in disguise. We only need to learn to accept it as a mercy. That's all. I hope I answered, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thank you for the question and answers to Prabhu. So on this note, I think we can end the session today. We can end it with the Vaishnava pranams. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Wishing everyone a very